Speaking students. I am still waiting for an answer to these questions from the Democrats. But the reality is starting to become obvious to the American people. Coincidentally, after we'd announced this hearing on the impact of this crisis on social services, Mayor Eric Adams kicked 4,000 New York children out of their high school in order to house 2,000 illegal migrants. He has yet to explain why he didn't offer them a plane ticket home instead. Indeed, one estimate from New York City is that the cost of simply educating, let alone housing and feeding, these recent arrivals will cost the city's schools $1 billion next year. That is effectively a $1 billion cut in their school budgets. A $1 billion cut to the funds available to educate legal residents. We have already heard of American veterans kicked out of nursing homes to make way for illegal aliens, of law enforcement overwhelmed by dealing with the accompanying crimes, of American mothers forced to drive 3 hours to deliver their babies because every maternity bed in their local hospital is taken up by a lawbreaker who's no legal right to be here. And we'll hear of more outrages today. Under the Biden administration, schools are becoming illegal alien shelters. Airports are becoming illegal alien shelters. Parks are becoming illegal alien shelters. Police stations are becoming illegal alien shelters. Nursing homes are becoming illegal alien shelters. Hotels are becoming illegal alien shelters. Homeless shelters are becoming illegal alien shelters. All of this is paid for by struggling American families who work hard, pay their taxes, and obey our laws. And when they question this, they're called racist xenophobes by my Democratic colleagues. Now, this crisis is not because of incompetence. This is the deliberate policy of this administration. It's not going to be solved by new laws that the Senate won't pass and the president won't sign or enforce. It won't be solved by spending more money to encourage and support still more illegal aliens flooding our country. And it won't be solved by swapping one leftist official for another. The harsh truth is that this catastrophe was set in motion when the American people elected this administration, and it's going to continue until the American people replace it with one that will defend our citizens, secure our borders, and restore the rule of law. This unprecedented illegal migration is exactly what the Democrats promised to do. It's exactly what they have done, and it's exactly what they have defended for the last 3 years in this Congress. If you voted for them, this is exactly what you voted for. And if that surprises you, you weren't paying any attention. The good news is the American people are starting to pay attention as communities confront the dangers and deprivations that this administration and its supporters in Congress have unleashed upon them. We will quantify some of that in today's testimony and then pray it's not too late to save our country. I'm now pleased to recognize the ranking member for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we hurtle towards a government shutdown, with House Republicans unable to fulfill their most basic responsibility of agreeing to a funding plan that keeps the government going, last night we shut down the floor because they couldn't even pass their own rules. And yet, here we are, having another hearing to discuss migrants who have crossed the border. And
illegally.
I'm sure that once again we will hear the same false talking points, blaming everything on Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden. The fact is that this country needs fundamental reforms, positive reforms to an outdated immigration system that desperately needs to be modernized, that would allow for multiple legal pathways for immigrants who are already contributing to our country and those who seek to come to this country to contribute. There is so much fear-mongering going on that it is difficult to know exactly where to start. But let me say this first. The Biden administration is enforcing immigration laws. In fact, the administration has been so heavy-handed in recent months that I have serious concerns about how they are conducting border enforcement. This is especially true when it comes to the administration's regulations that limit access to asylum and the use of expedited processing procedures for families. Today, there are nearly 38,000 people in immigration and customs enforcement detention, which, by the way, is what the Trump administration averaged in fiscal year 2018. But if you listen to my colleagues on the other side, you would think that there are 0 people in detention. The Biden administration has also significantly increased removals in a way that I worry violates migrants' due process rights and their ability to lawfully seek asylum. Since the end of Title 42 last year, the Biden administration has removed or returned to Mexico over 400,000 individuals, including over 65,000 individual members of family units, including children. This total is nearly equivalent to the number of people removed in all of fiscal year 2019 under Donald Trump. So the idea that the administration is not enforcing the law is ridiculous. Second, and I think this is a really important point, this hearing is supposed to distract the American people from the fact that my Republican colleagues have absolutely no accomplishments to run on. Once again, they are trying to scapegoat immigrants by making claims about undocumented immigrants' use of social services. However, under our laws, they are not eligible for the vast majority of federal benefits.
Coming up, an illegal immigrant charged with homicide had been deported from the U.S. 4 times before causing a fatal car crash in Colorado. What is his immigration record?
And Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas under fire in a House hearing this week over the border crisis. And we speak with an Arizona sheriff for an on-the-ground look at the issues. We'll have the details soon when we return.
Total personnel for the fire department are 52 on-shift firefighters and 10 support staff. 12 of the personnel are cross-trained in swiftwater rescue and are divided into 3 team members per shift. The Eagle Pass Fire Department is the main 911 EMS provider in the community. We respond to 7,500 EMS calls on a yearly basis. All of our emergency ambulance transfers go straight to the only hospital, which is Fort Duncan Medical Center, which has 18 emergency room beds. In 2023, EMS transports increased to over 9,000 calls for assistance. Approximately 10% were migrant related. Our drownings pre-2020 were approximately 8 to 12 per year. As of December 2023, we had recorded 43 migrant body recoveries for that year. These body recoveries include men, women, and children ranging from 2 months to 15 years old. As a witness to many incidents, I am here to tell you we are being overwhelmed with EMS calls and body recoveries. In my 32 years of service, I had not experienced this many calls. There are days it seems that the ambulance wheels never stop. Going to the river or areas along the river's edge where the crossings are frequent has become a norm for us with little or no help from anyone, not even the federal government. I have attached a summary of an incident so you can have an idea of what my men and women go through. This is a summary of 2 Nicaraguan children that drowned in the Rio Grande River by Eagle Pass Monday, August 22nd, 2022. First call came in approximately at 12:59 p.m. An EMS unit and a swiftwater rescue team responded to the incident located underneath one of the Eagle Pass Piedras International bridges by the Rio Grande River. Upon arrival, Border Patrol were performing CPR on a 3-month-old infant. This patient was transported to Fort Duncan Medical Center with a faint pulse. This infant was later transported to University Hospital in San Antonio in critical condition, where he later died. As the first patient, the 3-month-old, was being treated at Fort Duncan Medical Center, the second 911 call came in at 13:37 for a 3-year-old. An additional ambulance and crew responded with the swiftwater rescue team to the same area where the first patient had been located. On arrival, the EMS crews were advised by Border Patrol that the infant child or the child was related to the infant and had crossed the river at the same time with family members. He was a 3 months old baby brother. EMS crews were directed to a pickup truck where the body of the child had been placed prior to EMS arrival. All efforts to revive had ceased due to the length of time the patient had been underwater. The child had last been seen at approximately 12:45. Based on the presentation and time of the patient underwater, it was determined child had expired.
We have new information on the case of an illegal immigrant charged for killing a mother and son. Officials now say the suspect had already been deported multiple times before allegedly causing the alcohol-fueled crash. Last month, a 37-year-old man from El Salvador allegedly crashed his car into another car in Colorado. He was later arrested and is now facing multiple charges, including vehicular homicide. An ICE spokesperson recently told the Epoch Times that authorities had deported the man 4 times in the past. That was in 2009, 2012, 2014, and again in 2015. He might now be deported once more. After last month's crash, ICE Denver lodged a detainer to seek his arrest.
And earlier, we spoke with an Arizona County Sheriff, Mark Lamb, for his take on the border issues. Sheriff, you're right up there in amongst it at the border. What are the biggest and most pressing issues facing your county today?
Look, I think that the greatest national security threat to this country, not just my county, not just my community, not Arizona, is what's happening at the southern border. Some of the biggest pressing issues, the amount of fentanyl that's coming in, it's become the leading cause of death amongst Americans. I think with all these people coming in, we've stopped talking about the impact that has on losing over 100,000 Americans a year from fentanyl poisoning. But we also have military-age men coming from all over the world, flooding into our country and posing a grave risk to us as a national security threat.
Yeah, for sure. These are some highly concerning issues. What solutions do you see could potentially be put in place to address these effectively?
Look, this is not rocket science. Let's try this one. Hold people accountable, enforce the law. We have laws on the books that say you cannot come into this country illegally, yet as a country, we're just not enforcing those. And then we also have asylum laws, which the majority of these people are coming in under false asylum claims, or they didn't make asylum claims in the first country they came to. So we've got to do a better job of doing that. If you want to talk about long-term solutions, let's get back to the Trump-era policies, remain in Mexico, Title 8, maybe Title 42 comes back because the amount of things coming into this country, people, illnesses, sicknesses. There's a lot of things we can do, but the easiest is to go back to the Trump-era policies.
So paint us a picture of what it is like down there at the border and the issues that your team is facing processing all of these people, or with all of them coming across. What's it like?
Fortunately, I guess fortunately, we're not right on the border. I'm one county off. So the county below me, the other counties below me are really struggling with just hordes of people coming across. We see the videos every day, and those people are just wandering out into their communities, or they're bogging down Border Patrol. In my county, we've seen a 377% increase in traffic stops involving human smuggling over the last few years. We've seen a 461% increase in pursuits involving human smugglers. And we've also seen a 600% increase in fentanyl seizures. So these are real staggering, appalling numbers that we face every day, as do our counterparts along the border.
And what are the flow-on effects there to the families and communities within your area?
Well, I think the biggest effect is obviously the fentanyl problem. That is affecting families all across this country, and my county and this state is not immune from that. But we're also seeing rise in crime in certain things. You have people that are coming here, they don't have jobs. Many of them were criminals in their own, some of them were criminals in their own country. We know this because last year, I think they caught 16,000 people trying to come into this country that had already been convicted of crimes here in America, or who were wanted by law enforcement. You've got people on the terrorist watch list. Those are the things that concern the citizens in my communities about what's coming across. But, a lot of it doesn't stay in Arizona. Most of it goes throughout the rest of this country, and it's affecting America.
Yeah, just this week we're seeing more impacts of the waves of illegal immigrants across the country. New York City, in particular, making headlines. The experiences of border communities could be a precursor of what interstates and cities may soon face. As this happens, do you expect to see more unification at the state level about the border crisis and what to do about it?
Look, I don't think that the cities or the government people are unifying yet. They're basically just wanting more money to deal with the issue. They don't want to stop the problem. We need to unify in saying enough's enough. We need to secure our southern border and stop people from violating our law and then stop this invasion into our country. Look, I'm a sheriff and I've loved being sheriff, but I realize there's only so much I can do from a county level. I can protect my herd from the wolves, but at some point somebody's got to go out and hunt those wolves and put an end to this. And so we need good people to go back to Washington, D.C. That's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate here in Arizona. People that understand these issues, go back to D.C., fix our economy, fix our border, fix our crime. And I hope to do that. So please come support me at sherifflamforsenate.com.
Right. Thank you so much, Sheriff Mark Lamb. Great to speak with you. Coming up, a new inflation...
Solely to on today and being defensively using as testimony, but now about drug abuse.
I am now standing as a man that wants to be a part of the solution. I brought my community down. I hurt people. I was the uneducated man in the kitchen playing chemist with drugs I knew absolutely nothing about. The drug dealer right now is an element killer.
To defend all act already was not. The act would declare interfentanyl emergency. Requisitions on transnational organizations, allows sisters money and more. Consent Scott at the hearing said we have to follow the money. According to Scott, important to impose sanctions and organizations trafficking fentanyl. The first arts United was for good. That, as it's facing rising costs, shrinking, and 1805 Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts is a private arts college and museum, and the oldest in the nation. President yesterday no longer offer its Bachelor of Fine Arts and Masters of Fine Arts. Its museum open. However, that graduate will be the school for those students local arts colleges. The school's president, Eric Pride, rising costs expired enrollment for the closures amid dozens of other colleges shutting their doors. And being private, they rely heavily on enrollment as opposed to public college receive state funds. Third consecutive year in first. Now, Florida ranks right behind Texas, followed by North Carolina, South Carolina, and for the fourth year in a row, California had the largest net loss of one-way movers. Here to break down all these trends is real estate expert Jennifer Hammond.
Real estate's a big part of it. Is you have opportunities to purchase real estate, which in Washington, D.C. versus Florida, there's much better prices in Florida. And I'm sure the same as I have a lot of friends of mine that have moved from California to Florida, and the same thing from Florida to Texas. So some of it has to do with real estate prices, but I'm also going to say a lot of it also has to do with just laws and taxes, and there's all sorts of different aspects. It's much more, I want to say, real estate investor friendly in Florida as well as Texas. So you're seeing people move to these areas because, again, the other big trend that happened with the pandemic was that people could work home. So if you can work from home, why work 5 miles down the street versus if you can get a bigger house or the house that you've always wanted in Texas or in Florida that has more favorable taxes and a better price tag, why wouldn't you just do it? Just go.
Mm-hmm. And more specifically, what do these states offer in terms of taxes and real estate benefits that some states like California doesn't have?
So, for instance, the real estate price themselves is obviously one of them in both Texas and Florida. If you're looking at some of the northern places like Boston, New York, Washington, D.C., or California, but also like Florida doesn't have a sales tax. It has a lot of other benefits and programs for people who are coming in to buy. And they're national programs, but it depends on how the states administer them. Like, for instance, there's the HEROES program that is a national program, so any state could have it. But then how does the state administer it? Well, Texas and Florida, they have great ways of administering it where a lot of different homeowners are eligible for it. Because, of course, the devil's in the details of whether you're eligible for that kind of money or not. So that's a huge incentive to move to Texas or Florida and take advantage of these buyer programs that are not just for first-time home buyers. There are some specific ones for people who are EMTs or nurses. And again, if you're mobile and you can move, why not do it when your real estate prices are going to be less and you have, no sales tax, you might not have an income tax. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are so different and advantageous in Texas or in Florida versus California, Washington, D.C., Maryland, New York, places like that.
Now, why in these areas in Texas and Florida are the houses so cheap?
Well, I think interestingly enough, for a long time, you have concentrated areas like in Washington, D.C., where everybody's trying to move so that they're in a really tight area so that they can get to work. And then after the pandemic, people started spreading out. And as you probably know, Texas and Florida has huge amounts of land when you compare them to other areas. And so people can spread out. So one, they're working from home. But two, I think you'll find that, Florida's been known as a retirement state. So most of the people think, oh, you just go there for retirement. And now you're seeing people who have all of a sudden are like, oh my gosh, a waterfront property. If you try to do that in Maryland or Virginia, I mean, the price difference is so dramatic.
Was Florida-based real estate agent Jennifer Hammond. When we return, the U.S.
Speaker and our 63 other members. This congressional visit the border. I think it's even as it is in my district and the great state of Texas. The dangers posed by this open border, a deliberate policy by this president and his hopeless, incompetent, or lying, or what do you want to call him, Mayorkas, deliberately opening the border up and telling us that he's got operational control of it. We've got 100,000 dead Americans each year of drug overdoses, largely coming in across the southern border through the cartels, emanating originally from, especially the fentanyl part of it, emanating from the Communist Chinese party and their country, and the enormous expense of having to educate, to incarcerate, to medicate, where they get free, these illegals getting free medical treatment as well. And as you know, they're kicking children out of school in New York to make way for the thousands of illegals that are coming up that way. We can't sustain this. And that was the message that our speaker sent loud and clear from the border last week, is that we are at the breaking point. Mr. Biden, do your job, honor your oath of office, protect the American people like your constitutional mandate says.
Speaker Johnson, he has a lot on his plate, including the spending bills that are fast approaching. He's hoping to get border security into this deal. Remain in Mexico is one of those policies, I believe, on the table. Do you think that that is achievable? And tell us more about Remain in Mexico, what you think that will help to achieve as well.
Oh, that's a huge part of the policy that worked so well for President Trump during his administration. But I hate to say this, but I can tell you that and it's just as dangerous for the migrants themselves. Over 2,000 dead migrants have been found down there since President Biden has taken office. So yes, absolutely, we can do this. It just depends on the ideological concrete that this Biden administration has placed their feet in of extreme Marxist leftist ideology that they want to turn our country into. And we just can't seem to pry them loose. But we can turn the heat up as much as we possibly can, even with a 2-seat majority in the House. And I'll tell you who can make the difference: the American voters this year.
Yesterday, however, the impeachment process of DHS Secretary Mayorkas somewhat overshadowed by Hunter's drive-by at the Capitol. What were your thoughts on that?
I think the House has the votes. I really do. I think that this is a man who has been an abject failure. Not only a failure, and I keep saying he's incompetent. I really don't think the man is really incompetent. I think this is a deliberate policy coming from the Democrat Party, which is controlled by the radical Marxist wing. He has lied repeatedly, under oath even, and to my face, as the co-chair of the House Border Security Caucus.
Congressman Brian Babin, really appreciate your insights on this border crisis. Thank you so much for joining.